Hey guys, I don't know if you guys can hear me. This is I'm trying to figure out my settings here. If there's an error, please try it back. Can't tell if I'm live or not for some reason. If I am, if you guys can hear me, just leave a comment in the chat section just so that I can see it. Usually I have my other computer next to me, but I don't have it next to me now, so I can't tell. You know what, let me try this. Oh, nice. Thanks, William. Yeah, I'm trying to figure this stuff out here. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah, usually I have my other computer next to me, but then I don't have it here, so I can't really tell if I am doing everything right. But I think you guys are giving me the thumbs up. So yeah, I thought about just coming to check in with you guys, you know, and talk about something that I've noticed recently. A lot of you have, you know, are probably going through the BA program. Some of you recently went through the TUI, and I think it's important that we talk about this CV aspect of things. Now, I'm not going to say that most of you were disqualified because of CV, because I know that's not the case. A lot of you go to the check-in test stage for the BA, for the TUI. Majority of people got disqualified during the interviews as well, and some during the, you know, the what do you call it, the computer testing section. But majority of people, I believe, at least that I interacted with, got disqualified during the interviews. And it's important to understand that, at least from the general feedback that I'm getting, a lot of people show up to these interviews without having very sound understanding of what to expect. Just let me make sure that I'm not talking to myself here. Oh God, this awesome. Thanks, guys. I can see the thumbs up. Cool. All right, so it's a lot of, from what I'm gathering, a lot of people show up to these interviews without having a very sound understanding of what to expect. And I think this is where, you know, it's important to have that adequate preparation, right? Apart from just doing your own studies and all, your ability to manage expectations also is very important. And I feel for, you know, everybody, like I always say, you know, when you're going through these programs, you should have that tough skin and be ready for, you know, what is to come. Because honestly, there's a bit of luck involved with these programs, and this is where you need to be able to withstand, or at least bear whatever the results is, or whatever result you get. Now, I have made up CV that I want to show you guys here real quickly. And I think the reason why I want to start with the CV first, before we talk about the interview section of things with people going through interviews or preparing for interviews. For the CVs, I think I've made videos on this. I've gotten a lot of requests from people that ask about, you know, how can they, maybe can I look at their CVs for them, or can I help them check their CV out and make sure that it looks good and all. And I've done a lot of that for people without charging, by the way, right? But to be honest, it became very overwhelming, and it's just hard to keep up. I have a normal job. This is not what I do full time. I do this when I'm free. Like today, I just popped up and I'm like, you know what? I have the time to do this. Let's chat. By the way, if you have any questions, please leave in the comment section so that I can address your questions right away. That would help, all right? So that I don't bore you with, because I know not all of you are interested in some of the things I'm talking about. So I don't want to bore those guys. If you have any questions, leave in the chat section. I'll try to answer it. I have that chat section live right now. So talking about CVs and resumes, right? With the CVs, what I realized is a lot of people feel they get overwhelmed, all right, by, you know, they haven't maybe made their CVs before. They probably don't have a lot of experiences. They don't have a lot of qualifications or skills to use when building their CV. And hi, Tom. I do have this PDF file that I'm creating. Let me just show you a sample of it. Let me go to this one here, and I'm just going to share my screen with you. I honestly didn't really understand. I really don't understand why I do not have my other computer, because my screen is, this is a laptop that I'm using right now, and it's making it hard for me to do some of the things that I normally would do. But please just bear with me. Do this here. So what I'm creating right now is this PDF. All right, for those of you that are going through, that will be preparing for your, for your next opportunities, whether you're going to apply to be in the future, whether it's TUI, whether it's any of these airlines, any airlines, by the way, it doesn't matter. This is not specific to a particular airline. I've made this CV. Well, I'm working on it. It's not complete yet. All right. And actually, let me just make sure you guys can see that. Okay. And what I've included in this is honestly just, and it's going to be free, by the way. All right. So I'm not selling you anything. But I've been working on this for a few days now. All right. And I'm just going to kind of glance through just so you have an idea of what I've covered in the CV. And some of you that have seen my previous BA video or live that I did, I think almost 8 months ago now, maybe almost a year now, maybe 8 months ago, 6 months ago, somewhere there. I referenced some of the things that I talked about in this PDF. Now, a lot of you ended up reaching out to me asking for that document, which was a presentation that I made live. A lot of you have reached out asking for a copy of it, and I sent it out to some, but then I realized I needed to work on it. I needed to make it more detailed and just have more information to give to you so that when you take it, you can go work on your CV yourself, and it will give you a lot of pointers, to give you a lot of ideas on how to structure your CV and what you should think about, okay, when you're putting your CV together. Now, why am I bringing this CV conversation up? The reason why I'm bringing it up is because I've seen a lot of CVs over the course of time, but lately, especially since I started this whole YouTube thing, a lot of people have made CVs that, honestly speaking, I don't know why they felt that was a good CV. I mean, I understand that maybe lack of experience could be the reason, but when you just do a quick Google search, right? When you go on Google and you do a search and you see CVs out there, you should be able to try your best to, put something together that is as close as, what you would normally see online. Now, I'm not going to say that all CVs are great online, but there's so many resume services or CV services. By the way, CV, I can sometimes say resume or CV, even though they're slightly different, but the concepts are quite the same. And a lot of people would, I've seen the CVs that just don't come out looking professional. And you guys are applying for a job, a position that requires you to put your best out there. Your CV, I always say this, your CV represents you, all right? It's representing you before they even call you in for that interview or for that meet and greet, whatever it may be. And your goal is to do your best to make sure that that CV represents you as best as possible. Otherwise, it can be the reason why people will get disqualified. I'm going to give you an example. A friend of mine, all right, I'm not going to mention names. A friend of mine went for an interview. This was in the US, by the way, so it's not even the UK. And he submitted an application. So when you submit an application, you submit your CV with it. But remember, once you submit that CV, oh, by the way, I know that I'm still showing you the samples that I have here. I just wanted to show you some things I'm working on. I'm still working on this CV. I'm going to come back to what I'm saying. Sorry for the distraction. I'm going to come back here. All right. So he submitted this application with a CV that he had, right? He didn't do any reviews on it. He didn't do, what he did by himself pretty much. And he submitted it for this job opportunity. But what happens is when you submit your CV, that CV is stored. So that means, generally speaking, you can't go back and edit that information that you've submitted. So before you submit your CV, you want to make sure that you're putting your best CV out there, right? So anyway, he showed up to the interview. They called him for the interview, right? And this is something that you guys need to understand. Sometimes the automatic tracking system, or what you call a keyword checker, all right, the automated system they use, don't sometimes catch those errors that humans would catch. All right. So, you know, a lot of times, a lot of CV recruiters will tell you to just put keywords in there, and that may get you into the door, right? I hope you understand what I mean by get you into the door. It will get you into the door in the sense, yes, the CV checker may say that this person meets the qualifications and is qualified to move to the next stage. But when you then get to that next stage where somebody is actually taking your CV, and this is just a random paper, and is actually looking at your CV, the person is asking themselves like, wait, how did this person get here? And that is because of a couple of things, which I've mentioned in the PDF, which I would share that PDF once it's ready. And like I said, it's free, but I hope that you guys will be able to use that one. And when I share it, I will post it under this video as well. So if somebody's checking this video out, you know, a few days from now, the copy of the CV will be there. I think I should be done with it by tonight or maybe tomorrow, but I'm almost done with it. The point here is you don't want to put a CV out there that would have, you know, errors, of course. But the important thing is he had errors, a lot of it on the CV, right? And, you know, the dates didn't match up, the ways it was arranged, the structure, all that stuff. It just wasn't looking professional. And that's not what you want. And, you know, right from the moment those people had this, and by the way, when you go through your BA, for those of you that are going through BA, if you're still in the game or still in the process right now, when you get to your flight school interview, or when you get to your BA interviews as well, they would have your CV. And usually, especially for the flight school stage anyway, they would have your CV, and they would usually test you based on your experiences and based on the things that you have on your CV. Hence the reason why you don't want to lie on your CV, right? Because if you lie, they will test you on some of those things. And if you don't have, you know, good reasons to back up your points, then that may come out as being you falsified, you've made false statements on your CV, and you don't want that. So back to my friend's situation. He ended up, you know, stepping into the interview room. You have like 3 people interviewing him, and they're looking at the CV, and from the face and the look that he got, he knew that something was wrong. You know, they weren't happy at all. And from that moment onwards, they were just on him. They just wanted to find reasons to disqualify him, because if your CV can be this bad, you shouldn't be here. And this is why I always say that your CV represents you even before you show up. That means these guys, they will take, you know, 3-5 minutes or so to look at your CV. And if they feel that they don't like what they're looking at, they'll make your interview very difficult. It's as simple as that before they even see you. Talking about seeing you, I've seen a lot of CVs that will have pictures as well. Please don't use pictures on your CV. Nobody wants to see you. All right. You're not applying for a role as a creative director or artist or something. You're applying for that, then maybe they want to see your picture. But if you're applying for a job as a pilot, they don't want to see your picture on your CV. They will see you in person. They'll get to meet you in person, and they will assess you based on your skills and competencies that you have claimed on your CV. Right. And that's where, anyway, that's really what drove me to make that PDF that I was sharing with you guys earlier, just so that you guys have an idea of, and again, if you guys have to leave during this live, feel free to leave. The CV is not ready. I need to proofread and make sure, not the CV. The PDF guide that I make isn't ready just yet. Once it's ready, I would add a link to this video so that you can get it from here. Now, that's all I really want to say about CVs for now. Most of the things I would say would be mentioned on the PDF as well. The other thing I want to say is when it comes to interviews, right? And it kind of still relates to the idea of your CV. When it comes to your interviews, understand that everything boils down to competences, all right? And I talk about pilot competences a lot. Now, if you go on Google and you type in pilot competencies, you probably see about 9 or so. And to be honest, there are other competencies that are also tested during that process. And this is why it is important for you, those of you that are going through like your BAs, like BA, that are preparing for those next stages of BA. It's important for you to make sure that you have sound understanding, all right, And when I'm not just using that sound because I feel like using it, but I'm talking about you have a very good understanding of those competencies because they would help you during your interviews, and your ability to use those competencies and back them up with proper examples or experiences, and preferably experiences that you have that you've had recently, so that you can really describe things pretty well, would go a long way. And make sure to always tie those experiences to competences. A lot of times people go through these interviews, and this is for any airline. You talk about your experiences, but you fail to tie it to a competency. And that is something that you want to, it's like you say a bunch of words, but at the end of the day, and I think some of you that are familiar with what I'm about to say will know exactly where I'm going with this. At the end of the day, the person interviewing you has a pen, has a paper, and they have notes they're taking, or they're taking notes about the things you're saying. But most importantly, they are checking boxes. They're checking areas in which you have demonstrated competency, or you're competent in that area. With that said, generally speaking, they're graded within, between 5 levels, or some airlines will use 3, which means you demonstrated the competency. So there is a lack of, there's a word for it, I can't remember now, but pretty much if you haven't demonstrated the competency, so that's like a 1. If you've demonstrated the competency, but without adequate references or examples, or without sound, without details, then that might be a 2. If you've excellently demonstrated that competency and you've shown that you truly understand how to apply it, then that is a 3. Your goal, and by the way, if it's a 5-level assessment type as well for some of these airlines, then they would, it can be ranked from, like, just think about like a survey, right? Where it has least satisfied, but you have from least satisfied to the most satisfied section, right? That's the idea. The point here is you want to score as high as possible when you are using this, talking about this, when you're answering your questions during your interviews. Now, the problem that a lot of people face is that, you want to use, you talk about your experiences, but you fail to mention those competences that you're really driving at. And because this person that is interviewing you, they don't care about your story. Well, they care to an extent. So let me say it that way. They care to an extent, but at the end of the day, they are programmed, or they've been trained to see that what you're saying makes sense, right? You are applying good sound knowledge and decision making in the process. But at the same time, you are actually mentioning the keywords or competences that they want to hear. And your goal and ultimate goal is to be able to use that story that you're describing. And the reason why you're using your story, think about your story, your example, as a tool to convey the information. It's like, think about driving from point A to point B. You can use different things. You can use a car, a bicycle, an airplane. You can use a boat, right? The medium in which you transport your information across is usually what that example is trying to achieve. So if you have various experiences, right? If you're picking an experience, you want to make sure you pick the right medium, right? The right vehicle. Let me use that term just to make it easy. You use the right vehicle to convey that information so that the person truly understands you. But then right? Remember we said there are 3 levels. Generally, you demonstrated it, or you didn't demonstrate it at all. That's a 1. You demonstrated the competency. That's a 2. You demonstrated with good examples and excellently did a good job with it. That's a 3. So your goal is to find the right story that will help you convey that information and pass it on to the person listening, hopefully mentioning those competencies so that you can score as high as possible. Now, remember, when they ask you a question, any question they ask you in regards to any competency, right? Any of them. Your main goal isn't just to tell the story, right? Isn't just to list an example, isn't just to mention a competency, but your main goal is also to think beyond just that competency. Because, for example, they might ask you, tell me about the time you provided a good, excellent customer service, right? In the process of you describing your scenario or your example or your story, in the process of saying that, they're assessing your ability to articulate the information you're sharing. They're assessing your ability to communicate that information. They're assessing your ability to maintain awareness of when to stop or when to continue, right? Because a lot of times, a lot of people don't know when to stop. They got a time. They don't have all the time in the world to listen to your story. They want to listen to you, right? But they got other people in the queue waiting after you. And if you are not, I don't want to say concise, but if you're not as, what's the word I'm looking for now? If you're not as, maybe concise is the word, or maybe as succinct is another word for it, while describing your situation, you're going to lose them, right? And you, at the end of the day, may not get that that information passed on to them. So that's something to keep in mind when it comes to these interviews. And again, some of the things will come with experience, comes with a lot of, again, educating yourself. And you have a lot of resources on YouTube. You have a lot of resources on my channel, of course. You have a lot of resources on Google. All right. So, make sure you put in your best efforts in this process. All right. As you guys prepare for your upcoming interviews, your future interviews, make sure you do your best to put in your best effort into this. It takes a lot of practice. And this is something I always say every time to you guys, right? I always say that when it comes to aviation, all right, everything comes down to practice. Okay. And not just aviation, in any field, right? Whether you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, they make you practice these things. And aviation is not an exception, right? You have to practice a lot. Some of you that did your BA, PA announcement recently, all right? One of the recommendations I gave to, that I shared through my videos is practice as many times as you can. When you practice something, you're able to come up with a very structured information, no matter what changes in that information, right? But once there's a structure, you're able to perform well. And this is something, and this is just for me to mention this also, goes back to the interview statement. When you practice some of those questions, and mind you don't want to sound scripted. That's not the goal. We're not talking about being scripted. You don't have to go write it out, type it out, then try to memorize it, because that would lead you into what they call, you become very structured to a point where your brain is unable to function outside of the things you've prepared for. And that means once you sit down in front of these people, due to fear, tension, just maybe you're intimidated by their presence or the way they look at you, you get worried, and the next thing is you start to lose your train of thought, and you start to make mistakes, and that may make for a bad day, right? And you don't want that. So the goal is not to look or to sound structured or to go type your answers out, but it's good to practice with bullet points. That's my recommendation to you, right? Think about those competences. Make a list of experiences you've had. I need to say something about experiences, but let me continue with this. Make a list of the experiences you've had. Try to write them out. Write them, like, for example, when I was going through my interviews, oh my God. I think I still have the book here. This was a while ago, by the way. So it's a big book. It's a big notebook that I have here. And I feel very... these are all stuff. I have a very terrible handwriting, but these are all various examples. And it goes on, right? This is from the beginning, right? These are all like different examples, different stories, different stuff that I and I have another section here that goes over other things, by the way. You know, the point here, you know, this is another one here as well, like just going over different stuff that I'm not writing scripts down. That's not the goal, but the goal is to juggle your memory, right? Have a series of examples on your mind as you go in for that interview. I'm sure most of these things now, if I have to remember them, it's going to take me a while, because this were all like 4 years ago. I had to bring the book out while I was writing the CV stuff. I had to bring it out. That's why it's on the table right now. But the point here is your ability to perform well on the day of any assessment, on the day of your interviews, especially the interviews. With the assessment, if it's online, you're in the comfort of your house, right? Don't get me wrong. It's good to practice for those 100%, especially with those BA check-in tests and stuff like that. But when it comes to those interviews, your ability to be well prepared, like I'm talking about, not scripted, because something to keep in mind is when you're scripted, they will find ways to interrupt you. You'll find ways to dislodge your thinking, and that could set you up to start making mistakes, losing your train of thoughts, and then you start to stammer and I stammer, by the way. I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, but when you do something for a while, for a long time, I just stammered, right? you get a better flow of things. You're able to organize your thoughts better, and I don't get to stammer as much. As a kid, I used to stammer a lot, by the way, just so you guys know. All right. As a kid, I used to stammer. I hope I'm saying it right, but the point here is don't let your limitations hold you back. That's a key thing. All right, let me get to the Q&A stuff. Let's see. All right, just a second here. I'm trying to move this out of the way. Okay, cool. We hear you, William. Thanks. Tony, MTK, hello. Hello to you. Hedy, gracious, loud and clear. Thank you. Lizozo from Nation. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you again. I appreciate that. Hey, Steven, thanks for your help and advice in your videos. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for your support. Oh, by the way, oh my gosh, I forgot to mention this. Just crossed $4,000. I was going to say $4,000. 4,000 subscribers. You know, that's, I'll be honest with you guys, right? I never thought I would have 4,000 subscribers. I never thought I would have 4,000 subscribers. That's the truth about it. Why? Because who wants to listen to me, right? Honestly, that's just the way I felt about myself. And that's just to tell you not to believe in yourself, right? I'm not the best at that, I'll be honest with you. But the truth is, I'm really impressed by just the growth so far, and I appreciate that. And I hope to continue to provide this valuable content to help you guys. Hey, the most important thing that I always want to see is those messages of, like, you know, you're starting your training, these messages like, oh, I'm through to the next stage. And I can share a lot of screenshots with you guys, but I feel like to protect the identity of those that have shared this stuff with me, I don't do that, right? But in my previous video that I shared, I actually said it's important to share receipts, because when you show receipts of things that people are doing, or the things I'm getting, that the messages I'm receiving, it shows that, you know, I'm not wasting my time, that I'm not just sitting here talking to myself. And I appreciate your support, and it goes a long way every time when you guys leave those likes, when you leave those comments, when you reach out to me. A lot of you have done that, and I appreciate that every time. All right, so just so you know that every time I see those messages, it really does put a smile on my face, and it's a testament to just how much value is being gotten from here. And it's a community. A lot of times I don't know it all, right? A lot of times some of you will answer questions somebody will ask a question, and some of you will respond to the question and provide good answers, and that is great. All right, and that's what I hope that we can continue to do, because at the end of the day, we're here to help each other out, right? So Amar, if I will pay for my flight training, all the airlines request at least 500 hours on the A320. How would we collect these hours? All right, when it comes to getting hours, it depends on where you are, right? A lot of times, if you are going to build hours, the best way to build your hours is through instructing. I instructed after training. You don't have to do that, but that was what I did. A lot of people do that as well. Now, depending on your country, depending on where you're from, you might be able to go back to your country and find small jobs, right? That's the best way I can describe them. Like aerial crop dusting, aerial photography, banner towing, stuff like that. You may be able to find those jobs depending on your country, because I know in the US, probably in the UK, in the Western region, Europe, right? They have opportunities like that. But I am from Africa. I grew up over there. I know those opportunities are very limited, and it is why I chose to instruct. Now, some of my friends went back to, different parts of the world where they come from, and they chose to what do you call it? They could get a job with that, right? So they didn't have to instruct, all right? But some of them went on to instruct in other places, and that was how they got the hours. But the easiest way is to get your hours to instruct, because that way you're literally teaching other people how to fly. I did that. Talking about that, I need to renew my instructor license. It's not expired. It's going to expire in 3 months, and I started the process yesterday, so I need to get to that. All right. Let's see, William, do you know if some people have been told they are successful in passing the CV passenger announcement stage? Heard a lot of people. So talking about BA, William, on your question, I don't know if I can show this. Can I pin it? So I haven't done this before. If I pin it, it's not going to show on the screen. I need to work on that. You guys need to bear with me. But when it comes to hearing back after the PA assessment, when it comes to BA, all the people that I've heard back have all been those that were rejected, and that is so sad, and it makes me sad, because the disappointing thing for me so far is that a lot of guys that actually made it way through the process in the previous scheme, that last year when this program went through, a lot of them are not getting through the first stage, right? Some of them are not getting to the PA, and that is alarming. I mean, I'm surprised. I don't know what changed, right? And a lot of them are not. I'm talking about guys that made it to the final. All right, they made it to the final stage last year. I'm not even getting through the first phase now, and that is strange. Honestly, I can't tell you why that is happening. Hey, Sofian, and I hope I said that right. Hello to you too. Hi, Mathis. Let's see. From your journey to becoming a pilot, did you pay all your training costs at once? No, I didn't. I'm glad you brought that up. Hey, guys, girls, ladies, and gentlemen, all of you that are out there that are watching this, you don't have to have the full funds needed for training to start. I'm going to repeat that again. You don't have to have the full funds to start. If I waited until I had the full funds to start my training, the full cost of tuition or whatever you want to call it, I wouldn't be here. And that is the truth about it. And I know it can be very not intimidating, but it could be a lot for some people to want to take that risk, right? But it's like anything in life, right? A lot of times we want to gather, for example, 80,000 pounds or $80,000, $90,000. That's going to take you a long time to save up, unless you have a very high paying job or, somebody supporting you, or you got a scholarship, then it's going to be hard to save up that money. Now, when I started training in 2010, right, I didn't have all that money. And in fact, I didn't even have half of it. And I started training. Now, I wouldn't say that I saved up that money myself. I was supported through my parents, family members here and there. And then eventually I got a few scholarships towards the end of it, and they were very, very, not much. So I'm not going to say that I got a lot of scholarships to help me. No, I didn't. But when I started, I didn't have half of the money, right? But I started it, and I made sure, this is the important part, I made sure to maximize that money. Now, most of it is not under your control, or nothing is in your control, because you show up, I had no clue when I started training, right? I mean, I used Microsoft Flight Simulator here and there. I knew what I was getting into, right? But I didn't have a clue of how to really fly the airplane, right? Some people show up to these flight schools, because I was an instructor for about 5 years. Some people show up to these schools and they already know how to fly, because maybe they have an uncle that's a pilot, that has an airplane, and they go on to fly with this uncle, or they have a dad that's a pilot, things like that. I didn't have anybody, right? And again, that is what has really inspired this channel. I think I've shared that story for those of you that are not new. You've heard this story so many times, where I didn't have anybody to kind of point me in the right directions. I was a kid from Africa, Nigeria, just didn't really know what I was doing, right? But I had a dream, I had a passion for it, and I was kind of fortunate to have parents that would support me and somehow funded it for me as well. So when I showed up to the school, I was 110%, if there's anything like that, right? If I was 110% focused, like all in, right? All in the training. And it paid off in the sense that I didn't have to do a lot of repeats, right? I didn't have to do a lot of repeats during training. I soloed relatively quick. I wouldn't say it was really quick, right? Because there's some guys that were really quick. I'm talking about guys soloing like 12 hours. But, I didn't solo that early, but I think I soloed, like, if I remember correctly, either 18 or 20, somewhere there, or 21, somewhere there anyway, hours. So the point here is I was really on top of things, and it paid off, right? And that is what you can do. You don't have to have all the money. You can try to maximize your money by practicing. For those of you that have been here, by practicing as much as you can, well in advance, so that when you show up to those flights, you have the necessary knowledge you need to perform. Because the most expensive aspect of your training is the flight portion. The ground portion, it's usually cheap, because you're sitting with your instructor on the table like we are right now. But just imagine you're right across from me, and I have a board right next to me, and I'm teaching you all this stuff. That's what you do on the ground. Now, when you get to that flight phase where you start up that aircraft, that money starts to count, and it counts a lot. And per hour nowadays is like what, 100 and I don't even know, to be honest. It's been a while. I flew a smaller plane, so I can't tell you. But the point here is you can save a lot of money by being well prepared before you show to your flight. All right. You study as much as you can. You chair fly, right? Slow flights. You power to 1700. You set your flaps to flaps 10. All this stuff. You chair fly it. You imagine it. You close your eyes, and literally it looks stupid. I mean, you're gonna look stupid. Trust me. But that's the way you do it, right? That's the way you have to ingrain that knowledge in yourself, so that when you show up to the flight, despite all the distractions, despite all the noise, despite the fact that your instructor might be yelling in your ears, you're able to focus and do the procedures. Because when you can do those procedures, your instructor can sign you off and say, you're good to go to the next stage, or you're good to go to the next lesson. And if you show up to those lessons without being prepared, guess what? You're going to have to repeat it. And that's just the way it works. So you don't have to have all the money for your training, but you can maximize that money that you have, let you get you as far as you can. And if you run out of money, you get that money again. And I did that, right? That's what I did. Literally, there are times I ran out of money. I was grounded because I just, I ran out of money. When you run out of money, you don't fly. But while you're grounded, you're still studying though. You're still practicing. You're still chair flying. It's called chair flying. If you have a Microsoft Flight Simulator, you're practicing your maneuvers on it. And those things would really go a long way for you. All right. I think I've spent enough time on that. All right. Let's see. Next. Hello, Bojangles. Hey, man. If you're still here, you didn't tell me what happened. I replied to your comment. And by the way, I replied to your comments. That takes a lot of time, but I try to do that. I know I don't end up replying to everybody, but I try as much as I can to do that. All right. So you didn't reply to my comment. All right. I'm still waiting. I don't know what happened. I was kind of disappointed by the comment not disappointed, but I felt like maybe the assessment didn't go as planned. That's my guess. And that kind of just made me sad, you know. Hera Hypad, how much for your course? I don't know what course you're talking about. The only thing that is I'll say it's like a lesson that I have right now, like a class, is the British Airways one, you know, and that was intentional. I'm not planning to sell you guys anything. If you really want it, go for it. If you don't want it, that's fine. All right. But I intentionally, you know, and it's not, most of the money is actually going to the website that is hosting the thing. That's the annoying thing. They charge like crazy to host the courses. But I felt like that was important because for personal reasons, by the way. It took a lot of time to come up with those things. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. Hammer, and what means 100 sector and 500 hour in an airplane satisfy? Thank you. Now, I don't, Hammer, I'm looking at your message, your question here. You wrote, and what does it mean for 100 sector? And I think what you're referring to is the flight requirement, and that is usually related to like cross country time, right? When you start training. In the US, they don't call it sector. They call it, you know, maybe takeoffs and landings, right? So takeoffs and landings that you do at different points. So every country kind of have its own requirements. I do not know the requirement for your country that you're referring to here, but a sector is usually a flight from one point to the other, and then I believe back. I believe that counts as a sector. Don't quote me on that. I'm not too familiar with the regulations in the part of the world you're in. So, but that's what usually is sector. So that means you need to have 100 of those. And it makes sense. When you start flight training, you start your cross-country flights, you start your solo flights, you know, you do a lot of flights. All those flights you're doing are counting as part of the sector that you need to meet. I see, for example, the British Airways A320 FO job. I need to look at that. I haven't looked at it, to be honest. To be considered for BA Aerofly at the time of submitting your application, you must have a minimum of 500 hours. Oh, okay. Or 100 sectors on an aircraft type that satisfies. Yeah. That's exactly what I guess that's what I'm referring to as well as the sector. I guess from point A to point B is a sector. You need to have 100 of those, and you have to have minimum of 500 hours on an aircraft type that satisfies, I don't know, ZFTT. I don't know what that is, to be honest. You must have, you know, okay. How much for your course? Thanks. I think I already answered that. Hey, bud, John Smith, keep going. Thank you. Thanks so much, Hira. Do you do CV course to help Speedbird? So when it comes to the Speedbird or just any CV in general, like I said, I'm going to release this PDF file that I've made. It's free, all right, but it's taking me some time to put together, and I hope it would help you, right? If you have any questions, I'm going to put my email in there, and I would be able to, you can send me an email. I will reply to you when I have the time. But honestly, I don't want to sell stuff because that's not really the main reason why I created this channel. There's some things that may require me to want to, for my time, right? Sometimes some things would take time, right? And that's the honest truth. And I this is not what I do full time. And but I just know that it's been very helpful for a lot of people, and I hope to continue to do that. So that PDF that I'm making would give you a lot of information, and it will help you structure your CV. Here's something that I need to say. All right, when it comes to CV, if you're struggling to write your CV, get help. All right, please get help. And this is something that you don't have to come to me, right? There's so many CV services out there. Even Pass on that I put on my videos. If you check the bottom of the video, I'm sure you see a link to Pass. Even Pass has a CV service. You can go use them. I don't care, right? The reason why I'm saying this is, don't let a $50 fee or $100 fee or $150. I don't even know how much these guys charge, to be honest. If £150, $150, whatever they charge, don't let it be the reason why you lose a job that will fund your training and fund your lifestyle. This blows my mind. Like, I see a lot of people do that, where you're preparing for your assessment. You have all these websites that are providing these services to help you succeed, but you don't want to spend $40 or £40. I get it if you don't. I understand if you don't have it, right? I understand that. But if you have it, don't let that be the reason why. The reason why I'm saying this is, when I was going through airline interviews, I've done three major airlines interviews. I've done two with a regional airline, right? And I've done interviews during my instructor days. I was an assistant chief pilot for about a year before I left. Before that, I was a team leader. You know, the point here is, I've done a series of interviews. I've interviewed people. And then the airline stage, right? At that point, you're applying for a very professional job. Why can't you spend $40 or £40, even if you have to work for it, for something that will pay you thousands? Like, the return on investment on that type of expense is nothing, if you guys understand what I mean. So the point here is, for example, the CV. If you find a service out there, you made your CV and you need that second set of eyes to look at it for you, find any service out there that, of course, make sure the service is is from somebody that is in the aviation industry. Not somebody, it doesn't have to be somebody, it might be an organization, but they do cater to aviation industry, to the aviation industry. The reason why I'm saying that is, once you do that resume service, once you do it once, that is really all you need to do. It's like, once you do it once, you can use that resume. Of course, you tailor it to whatever airline. So let's say you want to apply to BA this time around, you go change some keywords, you kind of adjust it. But the structure, the information that they provided for you is there already. The format, everything, it's already been checked by people that do this. Because remember, these are people that actually hire. These are like ex-airline experts, right? People that are used to hire in the hiring department of an airline. These are ex-people that went out to start a service, right? And they're charging, in the grand scheme of things, very tiny amount of what the airlines are going to pay you if you get a job, right? So the point here is, once you do something like that, you do it once, and all you have to do every now and then is to go change the information. Maybe you need to update it, you update it, but the point is, the structure has already been verified. You have a better understanding of how to put things together. And that's really what you want to do, right? That is really what you want to do. So, and I did that. I did that a few times, because I know that, if this is going to cost me, $100 or I don't know, whatever, right? Whatever price they're charging. I know that if I can get a job, it's going to pay back a lot more, right? So why wouldn't I do that? Same thing with this assessment websites. They charge a lot. I know that some of them did $500, $600. Some of them charge almost $1,000 to prepare you for an interview. Literally, right? And that's a lot, of course, right? I'm not going to say that you go do those like $1,000. Those are like, you're preparing for like a BA type interview job, not like a cadet type opportunity, if that makes sense. If you're already an experienced pilot and you're trying to apply to like BA, yes, I would say go ahead and do that, because in your first year, you're going to make that money back 10 times. More than that, more than even 10 times. What am I saying? So anyway, that's just me ranting, all right? I'm not ranting. I'm just advising you guys that, hey, just think about what it's going to cost you and what you can get in return for it. All right. All right. This is from Fuji. As someone looking to go to flight school after university, would you advise to start building your portfolio before you even go to university? If you can, all right. If you can do that, here's the reason. Going back to that CV, going back to interviews, going back to all that I've been talking about. I don't know if you've been here all through. And by the way, I'm going to have about 12 more minutes, but I'm going to try to catch up on this. If for any reason you're struggling to write your CV, which was something I was alluding to earlier, if you're struggling to write your CV, or if you're struggling to come up with interview questions and how to answer, like tell me about the time, what would you do type questions, and you're struggling to come up with examples, it's because you lack experience. And that's not to make you feel bad in any way. That's just to let you know that when you don't have experiences, you will struggle. Last year, BA, there was only one 18-year-old that made it through, that was selected, that made it cut. The 100 people that got selected, only one 18-year-old. Do you know why? Would you guys really think to know why that happened? It's because of the fact that the younger you are, the higher your chances of not having enough competences or have developed your competences or your experiences to back up your stories, to make a good CV, things like that. And this is where I always encourage you guys. Hey, once you have age and you know that this is a career you want to pursue, start looking for opportunities, start volunteering, take up roles that will challenge you in those volunteering like for example, if you're volunteering in a place, try to take up a leadership role while you're there. Of course, switch it around to be a team player, switch it around to be the person making the decisions, like a leader, switch it around to be someone providing that customer service. That's why it's a volunteering activity. Go ahead and take on those opportunities. If you are somebody working already, find ways to explore other areas of your job that shows that you can, that helps you to exercise those competences. So if you are lacking those things, it's because you don't have enough experience, right? And you need to put yourself more out there or volunteer and join organizations that will challenge you to do those things. And that way, when you're writing your CV, you have a lot of things to talk about, right? When you go in for the interviews, you have a lot of things to talk about. You have real life examples and not just making up stories, right? And that's the important part here. What is the best? This is from Animation Gaming. What is the best pilot scholarship? I need to think about that. It depends on where you are. All right. The best ones out there are usually the ones that are free, fully funded. For example, the BA. Those are great. They fund your training, they fund your accommodation. That is 100% thumbs up, right? And that's why they are really competitive, right? The next best ones will be programs that are partially funded. Maybe they will give you some money, right? They'll fund your training, and then they would what's it called? Then you pay it back, right? But interest free. Lux Air is one of them. What's the other one again? There was one at the back of my mind right now. I think I talked about one yesterday. Iberia, that's another one if you qualify for that. But there's some programs like that. Now, the next best ones, all right, cadet programs would be those that provide some form of reimbursement. All right, those are more common in the US. They don't fund a lot of your training, but they'll provide, let's say you spend, just an example, $70,000. They may give you back $20,000 through incentives in various ways. That way, they kind of offset the cost of training, but they are not, you're not holding them, you don't hold them, but at the same time, they haven't funded your training completely. All right. So when you say the best program out there, honestly, the best cadet programs so far that I've seen is still the BA Speedbird program, because it's fully funded program. I mean, you kind of You may hold BA. By the way, just for those of you that are probably familiar with the process, if you start with BA and you have to leave less than 6 years, you would have to pay back some money. So just kind of know that you're kind of paying the price somehow, right, for your training. But the point is, you don't have to pay these loans that is accruing in interest and stuff like that, right? And that's the key thing here. You just want to make sure that it's great. That's the best that I would say. Anyway, that's the best that I would say. The rest are just the ones that I've mentioned also. All right. What is the best part? Okay. Lizozo Nation, are you supposed to show the full amount for flight training on your... Oh, great question. Lizozo, no, you don't. You don't have to show the full amount. Usually you have to show, a third of the training. That's usually a good start. Now, don't get me wrong. The more you have, the better for you, right? That makes sense. But you don't have to show the full cost of training when you go apply for your F1 visa or even M1 visa. You don't have to show the full funds in your, but they may ask you, and sometimes they don't even ask you, right? Like, how would you get the rest of the rest of the funds? But that's where the letter from your sponsor comes in handy, right? The person that is sponsoring you writing a letter stating that they would, they are ready to fund the cost of your training and all that stuff. But going into that interview, you don't have to show the full funds. Animation Gaming, do you have any more information about Air Cadet programs? Air Arabia. Oh, right now I do not. The information I have, honestly, was mostly the ones that I've shared. But like I said, it's not fully funded. It's not even partially funded. It's all on you, and you have to go pay about 160 something thousand, 164,000 or 167,000, depending on the two options that I showed in that video. So personally, I don't think that's, unless you have the money, I don't think that's a great option, personally. William, for the PA test, then if I did it 2 weeks ago and still have no answer, I'm presuming this is a good sign. Great question, William. Here's something to keep in mind. Some guys that have taken this over about 2 weeks, just like you, they heard back today and it wasn't good. And that was my initial thought process. But for some reason, they're just getting back to people. And sometimes it may not be good. Now, with that said, I have my reasons. I do have my reasons. And my intuition, this is all intuition, right? Supposedly. My intuition is that if you've been out, the longer you've gone that you haven't heard back, the higher your chances of getting through. The higher chances. But it also depends on, I would say, your CV, your motivation letter, and the number of people they can advance to the next stage. This is what my mind is, and sometimes I'm correct, sometimes I'm wrong, all right? So if the longer you've gone and you haven't heard back, there's a chance that it's a good sign. But at the same time, keep in mind, there's no guarantees until you get that letter telling you, hey, you're good to go. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Are you a pilot? Hi, C. Are you a pilot? Yes, I am. For Jay, what is the rough price range to start training, as I'm sure this is the career for me and wouldn't mind applying for price range? It depends on the school, but if you're in the EU region, Europe, it goes around, it's somewhere around, I'll say you can expect close to £100,000, right? Or euros, somewhere there. Depending on the school. In the US, it will vary between 70,000 to 100 and something thousand, depending on the school as well. So I would say you kind of do your research on that, kind of look around, see your options, see what you can afford. But like I always say, you don't have to have the full funds. You don't have to have the full funds. So keep that in mind. I'm kind of running close to my time here. Let's see. Cleaver, what would you advise 1-year training programs versus 4-year? That just jumped on me. Sorry. 4-year flight integrated college, such as Debrecen, considering it costs slightly more than normal training. Also, the loan interest for the extra 3 years. Honestly, I would say for your question, Cleaver, I hope I'm saying that correctly. I think it goes back to looking at the numbers, right? I am not familiar with all the numbers for Debrecen. I'm familiar with the program, but when it comes to 1-year training program versus 4-year flight training integrated, integrated college, one thing to understand is, I always say this every time, you don't need a college degree. If you can get a 1-year training program and it's cheaper and you don't need a degree, because like I said, you don't need a degree to get a job in the aviation industry, then go for the 1 year. On the other hand, if the 4-year program, like you said, is an option for you and you want to get a degree, because remember, this is for another day, right? There's so many reasons why it's good to have a degree, even though it's not required. I actually wanted to talk about this in one of my videos, my future videos. Sometimes these airlines would want to hire people for different positions within the airline, and they would state that the person has to be a pilot and the person must have a degree, right? So even though it's not required to get the job, there are some positions within the airline that will require to have a degree to be able to take those positions. So the point here is, it goes back to looking at numbers, see what works best for you, see what you can afford, and go for it. William, in the summer, I'm looking at going to a gliding club as I'm fortunate to live near. And would this be helpful to bring? Absolutely, William. All right. If you again, any aviation experience is vital. Any aviation experience you get goes on your CV. It helps to show that you have relevant experiences, you have transferable skills or knowledge. Those things will help you. And when you go for those interviews as well, you may have stories to tell. Of course, the more time you spend doing those things, your interests, your hobbies, volunteering, the more time you spend doing those things, the more stories you have. And you guys need to really approach this from a standpoint of, I want to gain as much while you're volunteering. Put yourself and know that even though you're not getting paid for that time, you are absorbing as many competencies, as many experiences as possible. And when you show up to these interviews or show up to do this assessment or do your CVs, you have a lot of things to talk about. And that's when it really pays off. All right. That's what I'm going to say about that. Would any questions cover it? Absolutely. Yeah, William. There's some of the questions they'll ask you. Now, of course, they won't ask you like, tell me about it. They may ask you like, tell me about your experience while you're gliding, right? But specifically, they may ask you questions in the lines of, oh, while gliding, what tough decisions have you faced? All right, tell me about the difficult decisions you've had to make while gliding. That's an example of something, or whether it's in aviation, but sometimes they don't make it that restrictive. Sometimes they just let you pick from your experiences. So they may say, from your experience, tell me about the time you had to make a difficult decision, right? It's now up to you, if you've prepared pretty well, to dig deep and find the best. I mean, remember, I don't know if you were here at the beginning of this whole live, where I said it's best you find relevant stories. Like, think about you trying to go from point A to point B, right? Depending on how far it is, depending on the terrain, will determine the vehicle you use to transport that yourself, right? So you want to go from point A to point B. The same thing, the story you want to tell or the question you've been asked, what will be the best story to highlight the competences that you're trying to convey? So you may have 3 different stories, right, for this same question, but which one best demonstrates those competences? That's where your ability to have a variety of experiences comes handy. So how to apply for scholarship? Innocent, when it comes to scholarships, you have to remember it's like a game of luck, right? Depending on where you are. And a lot of you, and I know a lot of people from, other parts of the world, India, Nigeria, Africa, you're always asking like, how do you apply for the scholarships? Yes, you can apply, but majority of the time, they only pick people from the states in which the scholarship originates, right? So that means if the scholarship is within UK, they usually want to support people within the UK. If it's within the US, they always want to support people within the US. And that is just the reality of things. And that is why it's best to find programs from your own country. That's the place where you have a much higher chance of succeeding, or at least being selected. But I know it's difficult in those areas. I know. So, but that's just my best advice. Again, you can always apply, but your chance of getting those scholarships that are way out there, especially for flight training is even very difficult. Now, for college education, yes, there are so many colleges out there. Some colleges that will fund higher education, right? And they will sponsor foreigners, international students. But when it comes to, actually, it's my time. I have to leave now. When it comes to flight training, it's very, very restricting, and you would need, to generally either get a sponsorship from your country, right? Especially for flight training. Hi, this is Bola Zogla Gan. I can't pronounce that. Sorry. Hi there, fellow Nigerian. I'm in flight school. I would like some advice on landings. You're almost there. I understand your frustration. I have 15 hours. Solo is coming. Any advice? Hey, man, the best advice I can give you right now from the YouTube internet world and live streaming, because I'm not there to teach you how to land an airplane. And I don't want to sound cliche, but I'm sure they've told you this. They tell you to look to the end of the runway as you approach, your flare or your ground effect, right? They tell you to look to the end of the runway. And to be honest, that didn't really work for me. So if you are in that boat, then I think what I'm about to say would help you. Your ability to divide your attention, that was what helped me. My ability to check. I looked at the end of the runway, but I also scanned closer to me, like the nose of the airplane, if that makes sense. Like I vary my scan between the end of the runway and the nose of the airplane. And of course, your ability to multitask is important, because you have to adjust your power setting, you have to let the airplane settle, and it takes a bit of practice, right? But that looking to the end of the runway, that didn't really work. It didn't really sound like something that, it didn't really work for me anyway. That's just the truth about it. But eventually, right, you will get it. It's all about just, hopefully, my recommendation to you, one of the things that helped me, get a feel. If you fly with your instructor, ask your instructor to land the airplane, and you just put your hands on the control. Don't make any input. Ask him, of course, let him know that, so that you guys have an understanding of this, so that it doesn't seem like you have multiple inputs on the controls. Hey guys, I think I may have to go. I do have something I have to catch right now. So the point here is, make sure you just put your hands on the control, get a feel for the airplane, so that you can see the amount of controls is being used. All right. I'm sorry, guys. I think I have to run. I have an appointment. This has been great questions. If I'm unable to answer a question, please just send me a message. Instagram, that's the best way to reach me. I have to run now. I'll catch you guys in the next one. All right. It's been great. It's over an hour already. I'll see you guys next time. All right. Take care.